This guide is going to cover my Faith build, which is currently one of the most strongest builds in the game. There are two weapons that I use for this build. The first weapon is the Smithscript Cirque, which is a throwing type weapon that is available in the new Shadow of the Archie DLC. The next weapon that I use is the Lightning Perfume bottle, which is also a new weapon found in the DLC. Let's start with the Smithscript Cirque build. The Ash of War that we will be using is called Swift Slash, which you acquire as a reward when you side with Hornsent during his fight with Lita at Shadowkeep. Swift Slash is one of the most powerful Ash of Wars for this weapon because it is capable of staggering enemies / bosses and does significant amounts of damage while also having some iframes and the ability to reach bosses / enemies from a distance. You can charge up the attack to deal more damage and travel further with your attack. And a charge attack on the Ash of War works even better when you're using Godfrey icon because it enhances charge attacks from skills by 15% and the Shard of Alexander, which boosts the attack power of skills by 15%. This Ash of War works really well in both PvE and PvP. The weapon's heavy attack is a unique throwing attack. You can throw the blade at your enemy and the blade is even capable of tracking the enemy. It's not perfect, but it is very useful in many situations. You can charge the heavy attack to deal more damage and time your throws if enemies are running up to you, so by the time you release it, you'll dish out heavy amounts of damage to potentially multiple enemies. The light attacks of the weapon are pretty quick and good to use for consecutive attack builds. The jump attacks are strong and you can even jump back or forward and throw your weapon at the same time. For this build, I recommend maxing your Faith at level 80. You'll also want 60 Vigor, which is typically the standard for maxing Vigor. The rest of your stats can go into Mind, Endurance, and extra Dex for the Lightning Perfume bottle that we'll also be using with this build since Dex and Faith have a C rating for that weapon. You can get the Cirque throwing weapon by looting it from a body located in the Ruined Forge Starfall dungeon. You will need to keep progressing through the dungeon until you find and pull this switch that will open up a hidden passage. Proceed through the passage and optionally defeat the two enemies that will be guarding the weapon. When you aren't in a boss fight, you can equip any of these talismans depending on what you feel like doing. Shard of Alexander will give you a 15% skill boost to the Swift Slash Ash of War. Sacred Scorpion Charm will increase holy damage by 12%. Claw Talisman increases jump attack damage by 15%. Two-Headed Turtle Talisman will greatly restore stamina recovery. Rotten Winged Sword Insignia will increase attack power with successive attacks by a total of 13%. Millicent's Prosthesis will boost Dex by +5 and raise the attack power of successive attacks by up to 11%. Smithing Talisman will enhance weapon throwing attacks by 10%. And if you want to make a build that restores HP back, you can use Millennia's Great Ruin with Godskin Swaddling Cloth, which causes successive attacks to restore 30 plus 3% HP, and Taker's Cameo to restore 3% plus 30 HP upon defeating enemies. Now, when fighting bosses, here's the build that I would typically put together. I use the Sacred Scorpion Charm to increase holy damage by 12%, Aged One's Exaltation to increase my attack power when madness is triggered, by which seems to be about 20%, Rotten Winged Sword Insignia to increase attack power with successive attacks by a total of 13%, and Shard of Alexander to give a 15% skill boost to the Swift Slash Ash of War. Here are the locations for the core talismans that I use for the boss fights. The Sacred Scorpion Charm is dropped by Anastasia Tarnished Eater when she invades you at Smoldering Church located in Kaleid's region. Aged One's Exaltation is acquired by defeating the Aging Untouchable found south of Woodland Trial Grace. The enemy will be invincible to your attacks until you successfully parry it. The Rotten Winged Sword Insignia is acquired by following Millicent's questline and choosing to assist her in defeating her sisters. The Shard of Alexander is acquired by following Iron Fist Alexander's questline and defeating him once you've completed the quest. In the PHYSICK mix, I would typically use the Holy Shrouding Cracked Tear to increase my holy damage by 20% and Thorny Cracked Tear to make consecutive attacks grow stronger by up to 20%. The Thorny Cracked Tear is dropped by the Putrid Avatar at the Minor Erd Tree in the consecrated snowfield east of Ordina, Liturgical Town. The Holy Shrouding Cracked Tear is dropped by the Erd Tree Avatar, which is close to the Frenzyflame village. For equipped gear, I had the Black Dumpling Helmet to increase all damage by 10% once Madness is triggered, and Rakshasa armor, gauntlets, and greaves, which increase attack power by 2% for each piece that you have equipped. So you will get a 6% total boost to attack power with 3 pieces equipped. You will also want the Frenzyflame seal equipped, as we will be using that to boost our Howl of Shibiri madness spell. The Frenzyflame seal is received by completing Hayata's quest. Rakshasa's armor set is acquired by defeating him in the Eastern Nameless Mausoleum. The black dumpling helmet can be found by defeating 1st generation Albinaurics located in Volcanic Manor and in the lower Lindell Royal Capital. You will notice the right enemy to kill because they will be wearing the helmet. 3 Albinaurics are found close to the Church of the Eclipse Grace in Castle Sol. For spells, we will be using Howl of Shibiri. This spell will increase our damage by 25% and an additional 20% when casted until madness is triggered because of our Age of Exaltation talisman. We will also be using Golden Vow spell to increase damage by 20% and increase damage negation by 10%. Howl of Shibiri is found in the chest on the 2nd level of the Frenzyflame Tower, and the Golden Vow is found in Corpse Stench Shack in Mount Gelmir. The next weapon we are going to talk about is currently OP and will 100% be nerfed, so if you're watching this video really late, then it might already be nerfed by the time you try this weapon. The weapon is the Lightning Perfume bottle. This weapon will work with our Faith build, so you can keep level 80 Faith. You can also level up Dex with it if you want to make it even stronger once Faith is maxed out. The Ash of War that we will be using with this weapon is Rolling Sparks. We will be using this Ash of War to defeat bosses and potentially 2 hits. To use this weapon to its fullest potential, you want to make sure that you cast the Rolling Sparks Ash of War as you are staring at the ground, and the closer you are to the boss, the more damage you'll do, as all the sparks will connect on the boss and do an observed amounts of damage. You'll want to have on the same gear for bosses that I used with the Smithscript Cirque, and that includes the same talisman for buffing. As for talismans, you'll want to have on Lightning Scorpion Charm, Aged One's Exaltation, Shard of Alexander, and Perfumer's Bottle. I am not going to focus on covering this weapon too much because it will definitely be nerfed, but this weapon is good all-around weapon to use right now, and it's fun to use along with the Smithscript Cirque, which might also see a small nerf for PvE and a large nerf for PvP, as well as many other DLC weapons and Ashes of War, because the balance of this game is completely broken right now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video guide for the weapons and have fun with your builds.